I wasn't all that happy with what was going on in Toronto. So Saskatchewan, I got a new start, and I love the way that Coach Jones runs his things out here, and it's been a lot of fun since, and I've been enjoying it.
Welcome to the Rider Outsiders, where we talk CFL football and your Saskatchewan Rough Riders, and the Riders beat the Stamps. I'm joined with Dylan Robson and the self-professed genius of Canadian football, Bryce Wiles. Gentlemen,
glad to be here.
Yeah, glad to be back on the RO podcast.
We're going to start off with some news. As we all know, Charleston Hughes did not play in the big win over Calgary. He was suspended for a game and fined for a DUI. Now, this came down to a code of conduct with the team. The team decided to suspend him. It does not come from the league. Quick yes or no's. Dylan, do you agree with the call?
Yeah, I think they gotta take some disciplinary action, definitely.
Oh yes, when you're a player and you sign that contract for the code of conduct, you gotta be held responsible for your actions.
Also in the news, the Riders signed their first number one pick there this year in the 2018 CFL draft, Dakoda Shepley, offensive lineman. I think it's a great timing on this signing with all the injuries with the O-line. Bryce, what do you think?
Oh, I love this signing. The O-line needs some fresh players, and I love the call.
Awesome. And Dylan, I understand you actually met him. You stood in front of Dakoda. Tell me about it.
Definitely stood there. We were watching him in the drills with the rest of the O-line. They were going hard. They were having fun while they were doing it, and then they started setting up a little scrum, and I saw the reporters, huddle around, and Dakoda Shepley came. So I was still kind of learning who is this guy, because I wasn't talking in the other meeting before. And as he's talking, I put together that he was, the number one signing, brought him back after he had a tryout with New York. I don't know if it was the Giants or the Jets. Someone knows up there. So that's what he was talking about in the scrum.
Here's a clip.
I was looking for an opportunity, and Sass called. And if there's an opportunity to come and play here, then I'm going to take it. I'm not one to turn down an opportunity to play football. So,
when did they call you, and what did Chris Jones say?
It was all through my agent. So my agent hit me up and said, "Hey, there's an opportunity for you to go to Saskatchewan and play with them and get the football juices flowing." And that was on Saturday night at about 11 p.m. my time, Ontario time. So next day we're just figuring out logistics. Monday I flew out here. So.
How was the New York experience?
It was awesome. Playing in the NFL, you're a superstar no matter what position you're at, right? Very cool. Learned a lot of valuable knowledge from a lot of really good football players that I think is going to translate here and in my future wherever I end up.
All right, that was great. Thanks, Dylan. Now it's time for some quick hits. All right, first up, before we get to the big Stamps schlacking, let's talk about around the league here. Lewis Ward passes Adam Vinatieri's pro football record with 45 straight field goals. Dylan, what do you think about Lewis Ward?
Well, at first I was trying to criticize him about how most of his field goals were relatively short, which is good. Obviously you got to hit those short ones too, but the streak is still alive. He passed my estimate of 43 straight. It's now at 45, so hats off to him.
I called 50. I'm holding strong on that. Bryce, Lewis Ward, you've been talking his praise all year.
Well, he's got the streak going, and beating Adam Vinatieri's streak for pro football is no small task. That guy played with the Patriots and the Colts too, and he's won a whole bunch of Super Bowls. So, what an achievement for Lewis Ward! You can't write a Cinderella story any more perfect like that.
He's a rookie.
It's
insane.
Rookie, came out of nowhere, and now he's got this pro football record. Just great to see a young player kind of achieve that.
Next up, James Franklin ties Doug Flutie's record with 14 quarterback sneaks for touchdowns this season. Bryce, do you think he gets the reins of the starting quarterback for Toronto next year?
Yeah, I think Toronto is going to go forward with Franklin. I think that's why he's getting the reps at the end of this season, because they're out of the playoffs. So I would bet to see Benjamin Franklin under center starting for Toronto next year.
Dylan, is that a good idea?
Yeah, you know what? And if he tied a record of 14 QB sneaks from Doug Flutie, and he only played, how many games did Franklin even play? Not the full season, that's for sure. So yeah, it'd be nice to see what he could do with the confidence of the coach.
Next, Johnny Manziel and Montreal Alouettes lost a close one to Toronto last week. Manziel still without a win in the CFL. Dylan, will he get a win before the end of the season?
I think Johnny Manziel will get a win before the season. I think that he should have had a win a little sooner than that. Pretty tough sailing in Montreal right now.
That's right. So they got Toronto this week, and they got Hamilton the next week. Bryce, do they win one of those ball games?
I think if Johnny the Money Man football is going to win any game this year, it'll be the next week, week 20, where he plays Toronto in the rematch at home of the Basement Bowl that we were all talking about, how they were just supposed to come out. I love how Dylan was saying, I hope they just have fun next week, on the weekend. So I think he gets his first win in Canada next week in Montreal in Toronto rematch.
All right, and that brings us to the Riders versus Calgary, a big 29-24 nail biter there. Dylan, Zach Collaros played lights out. Probably his best game of the year. I don't know what the heck happened with the offense. They were going from shutout to scoring 29 on Calgary. What was different here? What did you see?
First thing I'd say is that during the practice earlier this week, well, I should say last week, the practice had a very different feel. Players were playing a lot harder. They had every quarterback taking snaps in the scrimmage they were doing. There was a lot more drills happening at the same time. They had multiple people doing punts, multiple people taking punt returns at the same time. Like, it was a very, quite the hustle and bustle. So to think that when Chris Jones, after the Winnipeg shutout, he says, we got to move on. We got to move on to the next game. It's behind us, that sort of thing. It's important not to confuse that with them going to take the same approach they did that got them shut out. So definitely cranked up the volume, at least the practice I saw. So that was a huge impact on the game.
I like the one quote from Coach Jones there. He said something along the lines of, you don't get 10 wins without a talented football team, right? So you sort of throw out that shutout. Bryce, Collaros threw for 352 yards. What did you think about that offense?
I thought the offense was reborn in this game, going into Calgary, going into hostile territory against the best team in the league, and they balled out. I don't know if they were just playing possum all year or if something sparked that offense, because even though Zach Collaros, he put up a lot of yards, I think they were letting the reins off and letting him throw it deep. Maybe Jones likes to play things conservative a lot, and I saw a lot of big plays, big kind of chances, and throwing it and testing out the defense. So I really liked the direction the offense is going here, and it's going to be a good direction if they're going to keep this going in the playoffs.
That's right. So our JWL, 5 catches for a big 113. He led the receiving corps. Now, Dylan, Cameron Marshall got in because of a thigh pit injury. Went 11 for 76. He was running hard. I love this two-back setup where you sort of switch them out as one gets tired. What'd you think of the running game there, Dylan?
Yeah, you talked about that 1-2 punch that Marshall and Trey Mason bring. It's working. And that's the thing about the run game. When it works, everyone's like, oh, it's working so good. That's what they should have been doing. But every now and then, they play a good defense and the run game just does not work. And so it was nice to see it firing against Calgary.
One of the more memorable plays this game, a tip ball off the helmet catch by Cameron Marshall. I think, Dylan, you sent a message. Did you see that?
Yeah.
I did.
Yep. It's the newly acquired, is it Patrick Lavoie? What a impact he made on this game, even from that early drive we had on our own 5-yard line or so. Lavoie makes a good play, I think, to get 9 yards on first down, and then another first down later in the drive, and then bounced off his head. Basically, I don't know, do you call that an assist? Do you call that a header? What do you call that? But and then Cameron Marshall came in from behind. Very cool. Reminded me of the Grey Cup when the Sheets had the ball popped out, and then was it Durant or who had Rob Bagg or Getzlaff or someone come running from behind, grab the ball out of midair, get a good 20-yard play. It was nice.
Now, Guys, I'm not sure if you noticed, but so Mike Edom, he got an interception later in the game. And so as I mentioned, JWL had a bunch of catches. Both those guys just looked like they had a chip on their shoulder, like they're just pissed off the whole game or like super amped. I couldn't quite tell what was going on. Did you guys get a vibe on what those two guys were up to? Or did you not notice? Mike Edom was the guy that smoked the dude at the end of the fourth quarter. JWL looked pissed.
I did notice.
Stuff got called back.
I noticed, and they weren't the only guys fighting out there. O-line had some wicked fights. Who was that guy for Calgary that was just a ruckus?
Right. At some point, Labatt had his helmet ripped off, right? Yeah.
Yeah, I think it was definitely, emotions were definitely high for this.
Well, it's like the playoffs. The playoffs are on, man. Like it's. I love the pre-playoffs in the West of the CFL. They're always just crazy like this.
It's the game between the best two teams in the league. I know earlier, I think Bryce, you said, Calgary is the best team in the league, but Riders are right there. Riders are right there and can still finish first. Still got a chance. And with Calgary sliding here, they're definitely fighting for that bragging rights. Who's going to be number one? And they know they're going to see each other in the playoffs in all likelihood. And also having a great game, Brett Lowther, 5 for 5. Also along of 50 yards. He's back.
And a 49-yarder too, yeah.
Oh, yeah. And so
he had a bunch of long ones.
Jones got faith in him. I love having this guy. I guess I'll throw this question out there. Is he our starting kicker next year?
Oh, without a doubt. Without a doubt. I think Lowther is just clutch. And let's not point it out.
Isn't it Lowther?
Lowther.
Lowther.
Hey, however you want to say it, let's just say this. He was 5 for 5.
Well, this is the test, guys. Here's the test. Who is the injured kicker on the roster?
You're asking me who the backup is, who the injured one is?
The injured one,
Sam. It's Sam something. Sam what? What's his name?
Without looking it up, Bryce?
I have no idea. But
the name is Tyler Cropigna. And if we are forgetting his name, then there's great chance that Brett Lowther is our starting kicker next year. Anything to add on that one?
Well, how about this? How many games has Lowther pretty much won it for the Riders with their struggling offense?
Oh, yeah.
The offense moves it down the field, but they just can't close. They can't get that major score, and Lowther's there. He put up 15 of the 29 points. So,
it's hard to take it. You can't take his job away. But I don't know if you let them kick it out in training camp and hold them both in case of an injury, or you just dump Tyler and let him try to find a job elsewhere. It's tricky.
Yeah, I think Tyler could get a job elsewhere if he needed it.
If given the right time, it sucks when the team sort of you get dumped during week 1 or the second preseason game. But you're right. Kickers they float around and get picked up all over the place. Nick Marshall, short yardage, is doing a bang up job as always. Any comments on Nick Marshall's game?
Yeah, I was just going to make that comment that he's also another kind of unsung hero of the Riders, just taking on that short yardage role. And we saw him score a touchdown later on after Trey Mason scored that first touchdown for the Riders in 38 possessions for the offense. So the offense has been struggling, but we're seeing them start to find where they need to put their players. You remember at the start of the year, it was like, where is this player going to play? Where is that player going to play? And now all the pieces of the puzzle seem to be in place, and it's looking like it's working out pretty good.
There's not many things better than Bo Levi Mitchell getting picked off, but I can think of one, and that's sacks. And for whatever reason, we just can't seem to get to him. How important do you think that's going to be in playoff games here, or do you think the Riders can beat Bo without actually laying a hand on him?
I think I've heard people say before that he gets flustered in big games. Obviously the Grey Cup things, losing 2 years in a row in the Grey Cup is one thing, but that you can start to tell when the stakes get a little higher that he plays a little differently. And we got the formula. We just got to double down, I think, on the formula. Everything comes faster and harder the next time. Because, it'll be in the playoffs when we meet them. So
now, coming up in a little bit, we have an interview with one of the Riders' newest receivers, Brian Jones. Super interesting interview. But before we get to that, pass interference. There was a huge challenge here on, I believe it was to JWL, who gave a little bit of a push off Bryce. Do you want to talk about this? It got challenged. It got overturned. What do you think?
Well, we were talking about this last week, and everybody was bringing up roughing the passer, and I was the one who said it's pass interference calls
that need to get fixed. Yeah,
that need to get fixed. And I don't know how they can make a no call on the field, and then the slightest little, like, he pushed off, but he didn't really push him that much, and all of a sudden that play gets called back. And if that would have been the difference between winning and losing the game, then there definitely has to be something done with the pass interference calls or the pass interference challenging.
Now,
I remember there's some calls that you can't challenge, so maybe pass interference might be one of those calls where coaches aren't allowed to challenge that penalty.
Bryce, I know you're a huge fan of Glenn Souter, and Souter is in your camp on this one, that this is opening up a dangerous area if you're going to call, a glance of a hand on the defender as offensive pass interference. It's because then all of a sudden you could challenge pretty much every play and get some sort of contact downfield past the 5 yards. Dylan, what do you think about this call?
Well, you watch it and you're frustrated as it's happening once the penalty is official. And I remember when they changed the pass interference rules. Jeffrey Orridge, is that his name? Other CFL commissioner was still in charge, and they changed the CFL pass interference rules to be very, like you were saying, a touch on the hand could constitute pass interference. Over the past few years, they kind of laxed up on that, I noticed. But I think it's still in the rule books where
you can't touch the guy.
Depending on how you can't touch the guy.
Yeah, it's
so
insane.
I would like to see the challenge stats on that pass interference. How many times did the ref call pass interference and it actually wasn't pass interference based on the challenge? Because I wouldn't mind getting rid of the ability to challenge a PI call at all. I don't like it. I think leave it to the refs, because even on the replay, you're still interpreting as you see it and whatever. Mm-hmm. So
I like the idea that if the guy grabs him and tugs, that's you can see that, you can call that. But yeah, this did he push or did he just put his hand on him type of stuff seems pretty subjective. It could go either way. Okay. Anything else in the game?
Yeah. So like you said earlier, we got the Brian Jones interview coming up, but I want to highlight something that he says in there because he kind of goes over it pretty quickly, but you got to listen to it when he's talking about the double barrel offense that Jones brings. You see guys like Lavoie and Brian Jones himself ready to step in when their number gets called. And it's because of that double barrel offense. So anytime someone's trying to criticize what Jones does, keep at least in the back of your mind the double barrel offense stuff that Brian Jones is talking about. So let's check out the interview.
Here I am, Dylan Robson, on the sidelines of the Rough Riders field with number 89, Brian Jones, slot receiver from Enfield, Nova Scotia. You played CIS football with the Acadia Axemen. You were the 4th overall pick in the 2016 draft, and you played 4 seasons with the Argos and joined Saskatchewan here in August. So thank you for being on the show.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
So can you just take us back to the trade? How did you find out, and what was your initial reaction?
I found out in meetings. I just kind of got pulled out of meetings and basically told me that there was going to be a trade that had been made, and found out that it was Saskatchewan, and it was a pretty quick turnaround. There's a lot of emotions that go through your mind through a trade. A lot of people think that it's just, as a player you just get up and move, but you move your life to a different spot, right? So, to get up and move, it's a lot of work, and obviously a lot of emotions that go into it. But I'm happy. I wasn't all that happy with what was going on in Toronto, so Saskatchewan, I got a new start, and I love the way that Coach Jones runs his things out here, and it's been a lot of fun since, and I've been enjoying it.
So is there a steep learning curve to joining a team mid-season, or does part of you just want to say, put me in, I'm ready to go, or would you prefer to sort of ease into things?
No, a lot of the stuff that we do here is very similar to the stuff that we did in Toronto, actually. So, even week 1, coming in here, I was pretty comfortable with a lot of things that we were doing. So it's more or less just getting on rhythm with quarterbacks, and getting the coach's trust is really what you try to do within the first couple weeks of being there, especially with this transition, because the offense is pretty much the same terminology. So
what about the teammates here? Are there any guys that sort of reached out to you and offered any advice?
Teammates?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, like, I'm good. One of my best friends on the team, Kenny Shaw, we actually played in Toronto together in 2016, and it was funny. We were both in the airport on the way out to Regina, and I was in line in the baggage line, and all I hear is "Hey, B. Jones," and I looked over, and I'm like, I see this guy Kenny Shaw, the guy that I saw and used to play with in 2016, like one of my good friends, and he's like, what are you doing? I'm like, going out Regina, and I'm like, I've just got traded. He's like, oh, I'm going out there for a workout, and it's funny how things come full circle, and we're actually roommates living together, so it's pretty crazy. But me and him, we kind of ride off each other and kind of give each other feedback and just kind of see things from a different eye, because sometimes when you're going through the ranks and trying to get on the field, you kind of there's a lot of little things that maybe the general public don't see, so it's good to have a second eyes to say, you're doing the right things. I like the way you're playing, and me and him, we kind of feed off each other like that.
So you mentioned earlier about sort of you like the Chris Jones style of coaching.
Yeah.
Just sort of as sort of a quick comparison, what is the difference between Marc Trestman and a Chris Jones style?
Just the double barrel offense. I mean, in Toronto, you really don't get reps unless you're a starter. So, I mean, it's like, as a reporter, you come out here and you kind of just stand there and you don't get to ask the questions. You're prepared to ask the questions in case you do, but it's kind of like that. Like, you don't, if you're not a starter, you really just wait and you do your specials bit, but you're kind of on the sideline just waiting for your turn. Like, you don't really get an opportunity to run plays, whereas the way Coach Jonesy runs things is there's a first group and a second group, so you kind of get to show what you got and show that you can run the offense run fast, and it also gets your lungs ready, because you've been running, you've been doing everything that the one's been doing, whereas in Toronto you kind of just wait there, and you're basically waiting on an injury or bad performance by another player. It's really the only opportunity that you get.
So yeah, I imagine it makes it hard to jump in if you do get called up there.
Yeah, so I mean, like you're already in the fire, you're already catching live bullets, and then basically when your time comes to play here, you just go right in and it's a plug and play.
So a couple weeks ago we saw you against Edmonton with a couple of catches here at Red Mosaic Stadium. Last week in Winnipeg, the offense didn't really get the momentum going. Are you able to share anything that Chris Jones might have said to the team after the game?
This week, it doesn't really matter the last week is last week. We're not worried about that anymore. And I think that's kind of the message that he relayed is, we're a 10-6 football team. We didn't get 10-6 by being a bad football team. We got great players on this team. We got great coaches. We got great therapy staff. We got great everything, great facilities, So it's we got everything working for us. Last week we didn't have our way, but we're not worried about that. We're worried about next week playing Calgary at my home stadium. And the last week is a wash. We're not worried about that. We're on to the next week, and I think that's just been our mentality. Is just next opponent.
So as a Canadian receiver in the CFL, what do you think Canadian talent brings to the game, and how important is that?
Canadian talent? Well, I try not to look at it like that. I just look at it as we're all football players, Obviously, the Canadian status helps us, stay in the league longer and stuff like that. But, I'm trying to be the best receiver that I can be, regardless of my nationality, I had dreams of playing in the NFL when I came out of college, and I still have those dreams. It doesn't matter really your nationality. We're all trying to be the best football players that we can be. And Canadian or not Canadian, it doesn't really matter. We're all football players, and we're all trying to perfect our craft day in, day out.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so you came to Saskatchewan. You might see a lot of the fans around wearing number 89 jersey. In Toronto, you were number 6 and then number 16, yeah. I think. And so what made you go with number 89 here?
No, it's not any lashed at the guy that was here before. I mean, when I came here, Gordy was like, here's the numbers, and is either that or like a 35 number, and I wasn't about to wear 35. So, I mean, there's been a lot of good players that have been played 89. I mean, Getzlaff, one of them, Durant Carter, another one. I'm just trying to be the best player that I can be and the best 89 I can be. So, yeah.
So what would you say, just as a personal goal, or is like the biggest challenge you have as a receiver right now?
The biggest goal for me?
Yeah.
Well, I want to get on the field. That's my biggest goal. I mean, there's a lot that goes into it. You have to be consistent. You have to show the coaches that, you're a guy that they can trust and depend on. I showed a little bit of that when I got in, the opportunity. The guy went down and I went in and made a couple plays. But really, it's just being ready and just being consistent. That's the biggest thing.
So who are some football players you looked up to growing up, and maybe some guys you want to sort of emulate?
There's a lot of guys. I'm a big fan of a lot of the guys in the NFL right now. Let me think off the top of my head. I used to love watching Ocho Cinco play. I used to actually love watching SJ play, so it was kind of fun getting to play with him for a bit. He's a good vet. I learned a lot from him. A lot of guys, we got some good receivers on the team this year. You kind of take everyone's game and you kind of emulate it into yours. You kind of see one guy do one thing and you go, okay, like I like the way that you did that. So, there's a lot of good receivers that have come and go. I used to love watching Calvin Johnson play. I think he kind of played above the rim. A lot of things that I want to do in my game. So, that's kind of a couple guys.
So different direction here for the final question. Okay. Of these famous three Joneses, which one is the coolest according to you? You got Tom Jones, Indiana Jones, or James Earl Jones?
Okay, Tom Jones. He was the one that used to sing She's a Lady, right?
Yeah.
Okay, and what was the other one? Indiana Jones?
Indiana Jones.
I've actually never watched the Indiana Jones movies, so you can shame on me about that.
James Earl Jones, a.k.a. Darth Vader.
Darth Vader. Shoot.
This is a CNN guy.
I got to go with him, then.
James Earl Jones it is. Awesome. Thank you so much, Brian Jones.
I didn't see Brian Jones on that list, though.
Brian Jones, yeah, we'll add that in. And maybe a Chris Jones as well. Okay.
Yeah, sure.
Thanks for being on the show.
No problem. Thanks, yeah.
All right, big thanks to Brian Jones for that. I'm one of the newest Brian Jones fans. All right, Bryce, where are we going next?
Well, we got this segment that everybody loves in the RO podcast called The Rouge. And it's 1 point from your host that they want to make about the CFL that they saw this week. And you know what? I'm going to start it off here with the Rouge, and I got 1 point here. You know what we're seeing? We see it in the CFL. We see it in the NFL. Pink, October. You guys saw it, right? They're all got the pink tape and the pink gloves and everything.
Yeah.
But then you look down south, the NFL, guess what they're doing? They've gone away with the pink. They're not wearing the pink anymore for breast cancer. Now they've gone to this thing called the crucial catch, where it's every kind of cancer, and you get to wear whatever color you want to support whatever kind of cancer that you want to support. So
let me see a picture of this. That means people would have all different types of colors for their tape or their gloves or whatnot.
Yes, for whatever. I guess different cancers have different colors for
their ribbon,
for things, for the ribbon. So yeah, it's kind of like, it makes the CFL look like that loser kid that came to school with Pogs, and everyone's got Tamagotchis now, and they're like, what are you doing? No one's, right? They're just kind of behind. And it's like,
well, they might be behind, CFL. But I don't know if anyone's criticizing them. But okay, that's your Rouge. Thank you very much. Dylan?
My Rouge. You know what? We talk a lot about the current stuff, everything that's going on in the playoff scenario, how good the Riders did. For the Rouge, you know what? I'm just gonna go way back. You guys remember the American expansion in the CFL?
Sure.
Like, do you actually remember it happening and everything? First team was the Sacramento Gold Miners.
Yeah, right? I remember going to that game. Yeah, they played in Regina.
The quarterback was Archer. Can't remember what his first name was.
I don't know, but Calvillo started off with the Posse. I know that.
Calvillo with the Posse. There was the Shreveport Pirates, Birmingham Barracudas. This my Rouge was just to take a deep breath, step back, and just remember something beautiful. in the CFL that we all got to live through, the American expansion.
Well,
don't laugh. You know it's awesome. It was like the CFL's. It was like the CFL's XFL era. It was like that was our XFL. You know,
some would probably define that as like the greatest failure of the league.
Definitely, a lot of people define it like that, and we got to live through it and watch it, and it was fun.
Oh, it was, yeah, for sure. With that in mind, Dylan, I'm going to say the Rouge is my hope for this this beautiful, beautiful marriage between the CFL and the Mexican Football League, and one day to have the Mexico City. Oh, I don't know. Give me a name for the Mexico City CFL team.
Rattlers.
The Rattlers, like a snake.
Yeah, like a rattler snake.
Oh yeah,
they have snakes there.
How about the Sombreros?
I think that's 2 on the nose. Anyways, that would be a fun to live through. I'm not sure how we'd afford to fly all the teams down there and back, unless they have huge attendance. But hopefully, that this marriage with the Mexican Football League will bear some fruit, and we'll see something happen next year. Okay, that's all I got. It's time for some people's favorite segment of the week, the Meh of the Week. Who has their Meh of the Week ready and prepared, and they're ready to nail it right now, nicely and concisely?
Right. Well, you want to hear a Meh of the Week? You know how I am with my Mehs.
Long-winded and sprawling.
Yes, but let's take a look at this nickname that Cuthbert came up with. I think some of Souter's nicknames have been rubbing off on him. He came up with Lamarvelous for who was the player there? Dylan. Lamar.
You're asking me. Lamar. What's his flaw? What's his hey man,
name.
it's your Meh. You gotta.
Anyways, Lamarvelous. Yeah, nicknames. Just not really. Like, why even try? Just give up already, guys. CFL, come on. Let's
Lamar Durant. He's a receiver.
Durant. Yes, that's the one.
Lamarvelous. Why? Because he scored a touchdown. So all right.
You guys come up with a Meh.
I'm just saying. So Lamar Durant scores a touchdown. You are the play-by-play guy, and you got to say something, Bryce. You know, you got like the
producer's in the ear saying,
"Oh yeah, say
producer's
something."
in the ear. Say the nickname. Say the nickname.
Say something. Say something. Bryce, go.
Well, yeah. So, do you think that they plan them out? Like,
Lemmy D with the touchdown. Not related to Double D.
Sitting around the table.
See, look at that. I did one.
Right, yeah. When this guy scores, we're gonna call him the Canuck Truck. Oh, that's great. That's an awesome nickname, right? It's like, no, that's...
Well, then give me something better. Give us something better. Lamar Durant.
How about...
Think about it. We'll come back to you. Think about it.
Just his name.
Take a minute.
How about just his name?
That'd be pretty boring. But, all right. We're going to move on to Dylan. We'll come back to Bryce with a beautiful nickname for Lamar Durant, receiver for Calgary. Dylan, do you have a Meh for this week?
Yeah, you know what? I want to talk about the Toronto Argonauts, Grey Cup champions. They beat Calgary in the Grey Cup. The Snow Bowl was very entertaining to watch on TV. And looking at their season this year, I mean, oh God, it just they won this past week, but I mean, it's been awful to watch. I don't know that Marc Trestman's job is even safe. That's up for Toronto to decide, but my Meh has to just go to the from champs to chumps Toronto Argonauts. I hoped they would have had a better season this year, and they didn't. So I'm giving them a Meh.
Yeah, and I think a lot of CFL fans, even if we're from Saskatchewan, may not have a ton of love for Toronto, we want to see that franchise do well. You know, we're hoping that they, get some fans out and start having a good franchise. But yeah, they definitely suck this year. I'm going to echo your comment a little bit, but I'm just going to move it on over to Montreal. And once I saw Mike Sherman struggle to get his headset off, you remember that? He was all tied up in his shirt.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, I think he did that. I think he did that twice actually this year. I can't see him being around next year. This team is really, really bad. they're trying. But, 3 wins on an 18 game season, it's pretty hard to justify your position outside of just wanting some sort of continuity. So Mike Sherman seems like a nice guy, but I wouldn't doubt if he's one of the coaches that doesn't make it back for 2019. Okay. And as promised, we're coming back to Bryce for a nickname for Lamar
Durant.
Lamar Durant. Bryce, Lamar Durant scores a touchdown.
You want a nickname that's better than Lamarvelous?
That's correct, sir.
That was Lamarvelous. What I would call him, like Lemmy D or something like cool.
That's what Mitchell called him earlier.
Did I just steal your nickname?
Yeah, that was like subconsciously implanted, I guess.
It was rolling around in my brain, man.
I would have went with something like Larmazing.
Well, that's pretty nice. All right, Lamarvelous seems to be the best of the 3 nicknames still.
It's pretty good.
All right.
It's pretty good if you had to come up with a nickname. You know what they called the Jets defense? They called the Jets defense Gang Green. So the Riders are stealing the Jets defense name. That's lame. Like, come up with your own nickname, guys.
All right. We're moving on now, folks. It's time for predictions. Leading off this week, Friday, Calgary is in Winnipeg. We're going to start off with Dylan. Will the Stampeders lose again? What do you say?
You know what? I got a lot of family in Winnipeg, so just so I can cheer along with my family, I'm going to pick Winnipeg on this one. Plus, I think it helps out Saskatchewan a little more, and I think Winnipeg is in go time mode, and they're gonna get a win here.
Yeah, and we definitely need Calgary to lose to get that first place opportunity. And you called the Calgary loss last week, Bryce. Calgary or Winnipeg?
Well, everybody wants to hear what the genius thinks is going to happen here, and I'm going to think Winnipeg. I'm going to go with Dylan on this one because Winnipeg is getting hot. Calgary is not one of those cold weather teams, and they're going to go over to Winnipeg, and I think they're going to get a little bit of frostbite. So Winnipeg for the win at home for sure.
All right, staying with you, Bryce. Next up Saturday, Ottawa in Hamilton. Big game, big rematch.
Big rematch, and I think Hamilton is going to get the revenge at home against Ottawa. These are the 2 best teams in the East, and they're going to come to play. And I don't think Hamilton is going to lie down and let Ottawa win 2 in a row. So I'm going to go with Hamilton at home here. They have to win this one.
Yeah, likelihood, I agree with you. Hamilton's going to win. Dylan?
I'm going to go with Ottawa. And a lot of people have been saying Ottawa is likely going to be the team representing the East in the Grey Cup. I tend to believe that sentiment. So I think, like I said with Winnipeg, but this time for Ottawa, they're in go-time mode as well, and they're taking it.
It's hard to bet against Trevor Harris and that Deontay Spencer. The Riders know how dangerous they can be. Sad thing is, Ottawa beat us twice this year, right? So sort of cheering for Hamilton to beat them so we don't have to face them in the Grey Cup. All right, Saturday, BC at Saskatchewan. Dylan?
I think you know what I'm going to say here, actually.
No, really.
Going to go with the Saskatchewan Roughriders for the win. That's all I need to say.
Yeah, I agree. I think they're rolling. Thank goodness. Bryce?
Yeah, I think Saskatchewan's going to beat BC at home. BC is that home dome team, and they're going to come to Saskatchewan, and the Kitties are going to be a little bit cold, and Saskatchewan's just coming off a big win against Calgary, so they're going to keep it rolling.
Yeah, I hope so, right into the playoffs. Last game of the week, Toronto at Montreal. Bryce?
Well, I know I said this before. This is going to be Johnny Manziel's first win in the CFL. I think Montreal is going to win and beat Toronto over there in Montreal on their Eastern rematch.
It's definitely going to be a tie. Dylan?
Tie? You're going with a tie?
Yeah, I went with a tie once this year. I was wrong, but I'm going to go with it again here. Big tie.
I'm going to go with Johnny Manziel. Big win. This is their Grey Cup. It's home. Last season, a lot of these guys might not be back next year, and so they're going to play as hard as they've ever played this year, and they'll get a win.
All right. And with that, we're at the end of the show. We're going to throw it out for some last words. Bryce?
I'm just going to say it one more time. CFL, let's get caught up. Let's get up with the speed. And I love you, though. I love you, CFL.
Dylan?
Patriots are looking good. Going to say that. Had a little shaky start, but Patriots are. You know what? A lot of people hate the Patriots. I was with them back in the year 2000 before the dynasty, so I can't jump off the ship now. That's all I got to say.
All right, with that, that's the end of the show. For Bryce Wiles and Dylan Robson, I'm Mitch Wiles, and this was your Rider Outsiders. And we're out.
Boston is the worst. I hate the Patriots, man.